Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another live stream of screenwriting. Today we are working on Write With Me live screenwriting from scratch, day 15. And it's more research for Garvin Hackett. Great. For those of you who are new here, let me bring this up a little, see if you can read it a little better. It's as big as it gets. For those of you who are new here, welcome to Screenwriting, The Ballad of Garvin Hackett. It's a movie script written completely from scratch. The log line, The Ballad of Garvin Hackett is an ironic, darkly comic take on 90s action movies. Think of it like Forrest Gump meets Scarface, but directed by Sidney Lumet, except the laws of physics actually apply. So instead of going to the traditional development route, I'm writing this movie in public directly for you to visualize as a cinematic graphic novel. So grab a notebook and write along with me. So let's see. Oh, there seems to be an issue with my stream. Let me try to refresh this. There we go. Okay, we're good to go. But there doesn't seem to be a chat. So, let's see how we fix that. Use the docs menu on the menu bar. Okay. Let's see if we can open it up again and it'll be visible. Okay, that's good. And let me just see if I can. There it is. There's a chat. There it is. There's my chat window. Okay, everything's good to go. So grab a notebook or keyboard and write along with me. And if you want to follow along from the beginning, check out the Liminal Boundaries Channel, which is right over here. You can see it. It's got all the days of writing. You can see the screenplay being written from day one over here. Oopsie. Let me go back there. So you can see it there if you want to follow along from the beginning. All right. Let's see. So that's that. Let me do my traditional welcome everybody in the empty chat. There we go. Oh, excuse me a second, guys. I have to take care of something. 1 second. 1 second here.
Sun is falling, speed in the black. Nobody driving, we're in the back to the end of the world.
Okay, I am back. All right, so let's get to it. Let's see what we can do today. A lot's happening today, technically, around me. So let's go to the research questions. So the research questions, we've done Garvin's dad, Garvin's girlfriend, Joel Gillette the bad guy, Garvin himself, Garvin's mom. And we were dealing with Roger Gust. Roger Gust is a tabloid reporter from 1994 or thereabouts. And I guess the first question we have is, what kind of AV equipment did reporters have in 1994? Kind of curious how he would be getting about, how big his crew would be, that kind of stuff. So why don't we start right there? And hopefully we'll get through this one and Whitey Jackson, who's Garvin's mentor and also one of the bad guys. So let's see. Set my timer on my watch over here. All right. Let's see how we do. So let's do it. and go into research mode. Let's pull it up here. Hey Gemini, so I am writing an action movie set in 1994, and one of the characters is a tabloid reporter type. And I want to know what kind of technology would a tabloid news real crime reporter be using in 1994? This is a guy who goes out to crime scenes and tries to report on them as fresh as they can be. Sometimes he'll talk to the police, but for the most part, he gets in front and he wants the background to be as chaotic as possible so that he can report live to his audience. So, what kind of technology would he use in order to do this in 1994? Let's see. Boom. Let's see what it says. Writing a tabloid reporter in 1994 is an awesome narrative choice. This was an absolute peak era of sensationalist infotainment television like Hard Copy or Current Affair and Inside Edition. In 1994, the technology was just powerful enough to allow rogue, fast-moving operators to capture raw, chaotic live footage, but it was still heavy, analog, and mechanical enough to give you your character a lot of physical, tactile things to struggle with in a scene. To get that first on the scene reporting live from the chaos vibe, your character would be relying on a very specific toolkit of mid-90s electronic news gathering tech. So ENG, that's his ENG kit. The camera rig, a heavy armor with a magnetic tape. He isn't shooting a sleek digital card or a smartphone, he's hauling a massive shoulder-mounted beast that records onto physical magnetic tape. The camera, Sony Betacam SP, specifically models like the BVW300A or the BVW400. This was the undisputed king of 1994 news gathering. It is a camcorder in the original sense. The camera, head, and tape recorder are docked together in one massive piece of gray and black industrial plastic. I actually remember those. The weight, 15 to 20 pounds, with the battery attached. Yep, he's constantly sweating. Low light gimmick. If he's at a dark crime scene, he'll flip a physical toggle switch labeled gain to artificially boost the low light image. In 1994, this made the video look incredibly grainy and harsh, which perfectly fits the gritty tabloid aesthetic. Oh, that's great. The gain button. The mic, a heavy rubberized stick mic like the Electro Voice 635A, known in the industry as the Buchanan Hammer because it was practically indestructible. It would have a big chunky foam windscreen featuring his tabloid show's logo. Okay, tracking the chaos, scanners and pagers. To beat the local affiliate news stations to a gruesome homicide or a celebrity car crash, your guy needs a direct line to emergency dispatch, a police scanner, a dashboard-mounted or belt-clipped Uniden Bearcat radio scanner. It would be constantly crackling with analog police, fire, and ambulance frequencies. He'll know the local police 10 code by heart, code 3 for lights and sirens, or 188 for homicide. The alphanumeric pager. Cell phones are still expensive and mostly just do voice calls in 94. Instead, he'll wear a Motorola pager on his belt. Tipsters or contacts at the precinct will page his beeper with raw text updates. Shooting at 4th and Main, 2 down, go. Oh, this is great. He's got people in the force. Going live, the microwave van. Getting a live feed back to the studio control room in 1994 required serious infrastructure. He can't just press go live on an app. He needs line of sight physics. The ENG live van, he's driving a modified Ford Econoline or a Chevy G series van. This is perfect. Great. The mast, the defining feature of the van is a pneumatic telescoping mast, the dish. It shoots up 40 feet into the air. It uses a 2 gigahertz microwave transmitter to beam an analog video signal directly back to a receiver dish on top of the studio's building or a nearby mountain. The scene conflict. To do a live shot, the van has to look for overhead power lines, a major safety hazard. Park, level the van, and raise the mast. If he's rushing to get in front of the camera while the background is still chaotic, his engineer crew will be frantically cranking dials to align the microwave beam with the studio receiver. Oh, this is great. Communication and lighting. The brick cell phone. He likely has a Motorola Microtac or a chunky bag phone plugged into the van's cigarette lighter. It costs about $1 a minute to talk on, so he uses it sparingly, screaming at his producers over static-heavy analog cellular networks. the sun gun for lighting up a dark alley or blood-spattered sidewalk. This camera, the sun gun. I think I remember those. With an Anton Bauer ultralight, often called a sun gun. It's a blinding hot halogen bulb mounted right on top of the lens that plugs directly to the camera's battery. It casts harsh, flat, unforgiving shadows, ideal for making a crime scene look terrifying. A note on the vibe. In 1994, everything is 4:3 aspect ratio, square television format. When he looks through his viewfinder, he's looking at a tiny black and white CRT monitor, not a crisp color LCD screen. If he runs out of tape, he has to physically slap the side of the camera, eject a chunky Betacam SP cassette, which looks like a giant heavy-duty VHS tape, slam a narrow one in, and wait 3 seconds for the tape head to spin up before he can hit record again. His mechanical delay is great for building tension in an action script. Okay, so I'm copying this. This is all great. This is exactly what I needed. And I'm going to paste this bad boy into probably his character. Let's see. I've got Roger's character here. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. I've got his decisions. Yeah, I've got the detective. I'm going to put here equipment. I'll just do it this way. So go equipment. Boom. Let's see. I had 4 here. Okay. 4 it is. The equipment. Boom. And let's clean it up while we're here. $19.94 was the absolute peak of infotainment television. Okay. It's just powerful enough to allow rogue, fast moving to capture raw, chaotic live footage, but was still heavy, analog, and mechanical enough to give your character a lot of physical, tactile things to struggle with in a scene. That is not necessary. Your character would be relying on a very specific toolkit for mid-1990s electronic news gathering tech. Okay, so I'll just go toolkit. So that's the toolkit. And let's see, the camera rig, heavy. Okay, make this a 5er. 1, 2, 3. Oh. Yep. Give me 1 second, guys. I keep getting interrupted today. 1 second. Let's see what we can do here. I'll be right back.
Sun is falling, speed in the black. Nobody driving, we're in the back. To the end of the world. Tides will rise, tides will fall with the gravity of you. To the end of the world. Fortune teller, deck in her hand. Fool arcana.
And we're back. Sorry about that, guys. A lot of interruptions today. Everyone's wanting my attention. All right, so let's see. We were talking about Roger. So here's Roger, and we were adding to his character here. So the camera rig, and we can get rid of this. This is just all clean up because these are notes basically that I'm gonna use to. Okay. So the camera, Sony Betacam SP. And I'm gonna have a 300. Let's make him have a 300A. He doesn't have the latest. Oop. And then boom, 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 boom. I already knew this, so I don't need that. Okay, weight roughly 15 to 20 pounds with the brick battery attached. Okay. And then low light gimmick. This is great. A physical toggle switch labeled gain, artificially boost the image. This makes the video look grainy and harsh, which fits perfectly with the tablet aesthetic. Okay. Okay, and then we have the mic. Heavy rubberized. They say it's call it an Electro Voice 635A. It's much easier. The hammer. Okay. Known as it became a hammer because it's practically indestructible. And with a big chunky foam. With a big chunky foam windscreen featuring his show's logo. Okay. That's good. And then scanners. The camera rig. So that's the camera rig. And then the scanners. Let's see. Scanners and pagers. And then let's see. Yeah, Roger needs to beat the local affiliate news to a gruesome homicide or car crash. You need a direct line to emergency dispatch. Cool. Okay, the police scanner. Dashboard mounted belt clipped unit and Bearcat radio scanner. It would be constantly cracking with analog police, fire and ambulance frequencies. And he'll know the police codes. That's good. Okay, the alphanumeric pager. We don't need this stuff about the cell phone. We'll just have a Motorola pager on his belt. Tipsters or contacts at the precinct will page his beeper with raw text updates like shooting at 4th and Main. Okay, good. This is great because this is how Garvin will contact him. He'll contact him through his pager. Perfect. Okay, and there we just got a little detail that makes everything a little bit more interesting. So this is like the way that I'm visualizing or imagining this story. One of the elements that I find is so interesting is that because it takes place in 1994, you get all this old technology, and it's almost like science fiction, where in a science fiction movie, you get a real emphasis on the environments and technologies because they're kind of fantastical. Well, in this case, this is what's going to happen here, I hope, is we'll get this atmosphere of a kind of fantastical world of technology, but it's in the past. I've seen, the closest thing I've seen to this is when people do these AI shorts about old movies but set in the 50s kind of stuff. It's that kind of vibe. But this will be, of course, accurate. Okay, so getting a live feedback to the studio control room required serious infrastructure. We're talking about the microwave van. And I'm just gonna go live microwave van. There we go. And then, okay, so here you go. Cut all this out. The purpose here again is just ENG live van. It's gonna be a modified Ford Econoline or Chevy G Series. The mast a pneumatic telescoping mask that shoots up 40 feet into the air. It uses a 2 gigahertz microwave transmitter to beam an analog video signal directly back to the receiver dish on top of the studio's building or nearby mountain. Well, this is a good question. I'll ask about that, but I thought the mast would hit a satellite. I'll ask about that. Let's just put that into the research questions. Did the van mast hit a satellite? Okay, I'll get back to that. And then the camera rig. Okay, the scanners and pagers. Let's see. Oops. There we go. Oops. I think I might have boo-booed it. There we go. Deleted too much there. Okay, scanners and pagers. Police scanner, the microwave van. EG mast. Okay. There is no nearby mountain. Because we're in South Florida. The scene conflict. To do a live shoot, the van has to look for an overhead power lines, park, level the van, and raise the mast. If he's rushing to get in front of the camera while the background is still chaotic, his engineer crew will be frantically cranking dials to align the microwave beam with the studio receiver. That's kind of an interesting angle there. Okay, communication and lighting. Let's see what we got. Last one, hopefully. We can get to the next stuff. All right, communication. The brick cell phone, Motorola Microtech, perfect. Or a chunky bag phone, plugged into the cigarette lighter, costs about $1 a minute. He uses it sparingly, screaming at his producer over static, heavy analog cellular waterworks. Okay, I like it. The sun gun. This is great. Okay. It will be. An Anton Bauer ultralight, often called the sun gun. A blinding hot halogen bulb mounted right on top of the lens that plugs directly into the camera's battery. It casts a harsh, flat, unforgiving shadows, ideal for making a crime scene look terrifying. Okay. And that's it. And, oh yeah, aspect ratio. This is actually really good. I really like this little detail. So, just aspect ratios. So in case anybody doesn't know who might be watching this, an aspect ratio is the relationship between the vertical and the horizontal length of a video or film frame. Okay, 4.3 aspect ratio. When he looks through his viewfinder, he's looking at a tiny black. Okay, so I'll go viewfinder. And okay, and I remember those. And then I'll go aspect ratio. Okay. So it's aspect ratio, and then 2. Okay, and then tape, Betacam SP, cassette. That's kind of neat. Okay, time for tape heads to spin up. 3 seconds. All right. There we go. All right. So I think. Okay. Go to miscellaneous tech notes. Okay. Cool. So I think we got enough information here that we can move on to the next question. What do we got here? Research question number 1. That's the AV equipment. What did the van... Oh, did the van mast hit a satellite? That's a question. Need a satellite. Not hit. Use. Let's see. Let's go into research mode. Boom. And let's say, okay, the research van, the news van, the ENG van, that mast, would it use a satellite or would it actually need to go line of sight? I'm thinking of South Florida where it's very flat. So would it have relays on top of buildings or would they actually use a satellite? I'm thinking about South Florida because it's relatively flat. So would they use receivers on top of tall buildings or would they use a satellite? Okay. Let's see. See what it says. For local, it would almost certainly be a microwave line of sight. Okay. Local TV stations. Tabloid shows operating out of local hubs like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, from each set up a network of tall, permanent receiver towers. Because South Florida has no hills or mountains, a receiver dish placed on top of a 1,000-foot broadcast tower or a skyscraper could see for dozens of miles in every direction. Okay, the main enemies aren't mountains, they're condo high-rises, thick patches of banyan trees, and highway overpasses. Oh, this is great. If the reporting is on a chaotic shootout in a dense neighborhood like Little Havana, near the high rises of Brickell, they can't get a signal out. Your script can have a tense moment where he is screaming at the tech guy, then to get to the top ramp of the parking garage just to clear the surrounding buildings and get a line of sight to the downtown receiver tower. That's a cool idea. I really like that idea. I'm going to throw that into Roger's story. Let's use it. I'll go in here. Boom. Go to the story. Let's see. So we got his character, but we want his story. Roger Gust. I'll get the story. And then I'll just put here the news van. There we go. News van line of sight drama. And I'll just put that right there. So now we have that as a potential complication, which gives us a little bit more of an angle. Like he misses most of the massacre at the end. All right. And he's really upset about that. So let's go back to research. The pan and tilt. When he rolls up to a crime scene, the tech inside the van has to look at a laminated map of South Florida that shows the exact compass headings for the station's various pickup towers. How cool is that? Once the mast is extended, the tech uses a small joystick controller inside the van to mechanically rotate the dish on its mast until it is pointed directly at the coordinates of the nearest tower. The tech will look at a signal meter. If the needle spikes, they are locked in and ready to broadcast. I'm going to pop that in. That's so cool. All right. Let's do that. Let's see. Tech alignment. Tech signal alignment. Because that just seems to me like it could be really dramatic. Right? Let's see. Okay. And I'll just call this the pan and tilt process. Take over the number. Okay, cool. Now we'll have that. And let's go back to research. Let's see what we got. Why no satellite? It's okay. I don't need to know. Okay, I just need to know who was the manufacturer of this ENG equipment. Like if I wanted to get an image of the interior of a van like this, what are the names industrially? What are the brands that would have built out a van like this so I could look up the images? Okay, Gemini is delivering today so far. Let's see. Ford and Chevy didn't build the equipment. Specialized coach builders. Wolf Coach. This is the legendary gold standard name. Frontline Communications. And Shook Electronics. I love the name Shook. Wall burst NAS, NURID, and NSI. What to look for in the interior images: the rack wall, the U-matic, the CRT monitors. A quick tip for visualizing the space: the interior is incredibly cramped because of the equipment racks, the Wilbert mast column, and the editing desk. There is usually only enough room for 1 or 2 swivel desk chairs. If an action scene breaks out inside the van, it is a tight metallic claustrophobic space filled with the hum of loud cooling fans and air conditioning straining against the Florida heat. Oh, right, loud cooling fans. That's, man, these little details. That's really, really good. Okay, I love it. I'm just going to copy the whole thing because I'm going to clean this up later. This is just for... I want to move on to the other... let's just go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Van interior. I just sort of want to just have this stuff, you know. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll look through this when I go to the visualizations. This isn't necessary to move the story forward right now, but it will be later. So, okay, I think I'm good. This later we do this thing called synthesis where we organize all this information. But for right now, let's just get through it. Okay, what would be the MO of reporting on a crime scene at the time? Okay, let's talk about that. That is a good question. Okay, what would be the MO of a reporter working on reporting on a crime? What is the sequence of events that would happen that the reporter would be able to do sequentially in order to make to get started? Let's do this, the life cycle. What's the life cycle of a story mechanistically, step by step, for a tabloid reporter? Let's see what happens. For an aggressive, fast-moving tabloid reporter in 1994, the entire business model is speed and theatricality. They aren't trying to build a meticulous legal case like the traditional, okay. Strip the scene of its rawest emotion before the bodies are even cold. Mechanistically, from the second the police scanner crackles to life, to the moment they throw the broadcast back to the studio, here is the exact step-by-step procedure your character would execute in South Florida. The tabloid reporter's playbook. Intercepting the call. The police scanner in the dash of the van crackles with a code like signal 7 for a dead body or signal 21 for a shooting. The reporter immediately cross-references the location on a physical spiral-bound Thomas Guide map. Oh, those books, the Thomas Guide, on their lap. The driver slams on the gas before the police dispatcher even finishes giving the address. Deploying the rig. They roll up to the scene, often arriving at the exact same time as the first few police cruisers, while the camera operators hoist the Betacam SP onto their shoulder and clicks onto the blinding hot sun gun halogen light. That's if it's during the nighttime. The reporter clips a wire, or maybe not, maybe it's during the daytime to avoid shadows. I have to look into that. The reporter clips a wireless transmitter pack to their belt and tests their hands-held stick microphone. Establishing line of sight, the van tech parks the vehicle with a clear view of the horizon towards the nearest broadcast tower. The antenna farms in Pembroke Pines. The tech hits the pneumatic valve, and the Wilbert mast shoots up through the roof with a loud chunk inside the van. The tech uses the joystick to pan the microwave dish until the signal meter needles spike, locking the analog feed directly to the studio control room. The reporter pushes past, this is the B-roll, the reporter pushes past the first layer of yellow police tape before officers can fully secure the perimeter. They command the camera operator to get juicy B-roll, flashing red cruiser lights, bouncing off puddles, a distraught witness crying on a curb, or EMTs loading a stretcher. The tabloid style demands extreme close-ups on details like dropped shoes, bullet casings, or blood pooling on asphalt. Ambushing the witness. Oh my god, this is so good. While traditional media waits for the official police public information officer to give a statement, the tabloid reporter deliberately avoids them. Instead, they hunt for neighbors or bystander eyewitnesses. They shove the heavy electro voice mic into the faces of the shocked, emotional people, asking highly leading sensational questions like, did you hear the mother screaming when the shots rang out? Jeez. Okay, In the chaos stand up, the studio producer yells through the reporter's earpiece, counting them down to air. The reporter positions himself so the most chaotic part of the scene, grieving relatives, a line of cop cars, or a body bag being zipped up, is framed right behind their head. They deliver a dramatic, breathless, present tense monologue directly into the camera lens, capitalizing on the live, unedited urgency of the moment. To distinguish your character from a regular evening news reporter, emphasize their lack of professional boundaries. A standard news reporter waits behind the press line and speaks in a neutral tone. A 1994 tabloid reporter is practically a performer. They step over the tape, they talk over sirens, they use dramatic pauses, and they actively try to film things the police are trying to cover up with blue tarps. If the police try to push them back, the camera operator will keep recording the cop's hand, blocking the lens, because the tabloid world, being censored by the cops, is great television. Okay, I'm just capturing all this. This is great research. And I'll bring it back to my writing tab here. And let's go. So I'm going to put that... Where would I put that? I'll put that maybe in character? I don't know. Let's see. His character has stuff in it. He's got communication and lighting. I'm going to put method of operation. That's where I'm going to put it. I'm going to go boom, boom. Method of operation. But so I got that. That's all in there. Okay. And I'll worry about the titles later. But I do have to ask another question, which is, okay, so once he's got the footage, what happens? What's the life cycle before it gets on the air? Or is it live? How does it work? This is the important part. In 1994, the life cycle depends entirely on whether your reporter is going live right now or building a package story. Because he's a fast-moving tabloid guy who wants everything as fresh as it can be, he will use both methods, and each has its own frantic mechanical workflow. This is exactly how the footage gets from his camera to the living room of South Florida. So scenario A, the true live hit, instantaneous. If the studio producers decide the crime scene is spectacular enough to interrupt regular programming for breaking news alert, or if he is hitting a hard deadline for the evening show, the footage bypasses the editing bay entirely. The workflow. The camera's video output is hooked up via long, heavy black coaxial cable directly into the input panel on the side of the ENG van. Oh, that's great, because the car's probably still on fire when he shows up for Garvin's dad's, where he got killed, yeah. The transmission. That video signal goes through the van's rack equipment, shoots up the extended Wilbert mast, beams across South Florida. Okay, the control room. Inside the control room, a director switches the TV feed to the microwave receiver channel. The audience at home sees exactly what the camera operator is looking at with less than a second of delay. If the camera operator trips, the signal cuts out, or a cop steps in front of the lens and drops an F-bomb, it goes out over the air completely unedited. Scenario B, the feed and edit. More often, the reporter will sprint to a scene, shoot a bunch of graphic B-roll and dramatic stand-up monologue, and then need to get the footage edited to a slick, sensationalized segment before airtime. Because driving back to the studio through South Florida traffic would take too long, they do a field feed. Step 1. The camera operator pops the heavy plastic Betacam FT tape out of the camera. They physically sprint to the van, climb inside the cramped air-conditioned interior, and shove the tape into the heavy Sony BVW75 playback deck, bolted into the equipment rack. Oh, this is perfect. This is what they're doing when Garvin comes out with the M60, pitching the line. The van tech calls the station control room on the motor cellular bag phone. Hey, this is truck 3. I've got a line of sight to the downtown tower. Give me the channel. I'm ready to feed the raw tape. The studio engineer flips a switch on their end to record the incoming microwave signal onto a master tape back at headquarters. The tech hits play in the VCR deck inside the van. In 1994, you cannot compress or airdrop data. If they shoot 15 minutes, it takes exactly 15 minutes to play and transmit it back to the studio over the microwave beam. The mad sprint. Back at the station, an editor pulls the newly recorded tape into a linear tape-to-tape editing suite. The process. Working furiously against the clock, the editor matches the reporter's audio track with the most shocking visuals, adding dramatic sound effects like a loud whoosh or gavel slam transition and cheesy on-screen text overlays known as chirons or font graphics like Bloodbath and Broward. The finish line. The finish tape is physically run down the hallway by a production assistant and slammed into a playback deck in the master control room just seconds before the anchor introduces the segment. A great conflict device for your script, the dropout. Because 1994 microwave technology is purely analog, it is highly susceptible to multipath interference, reflections off metal or buildings. If a classic South Florida downpour hits while your tech is trying to feed tape or go live, oh, rain. We really haven't thought of rain or hurricanes. The rain can absorb the microwave signals. The image on the TV screen back at the studio will instantly start breaking up into the harsh white analog static and rolling lines, forcing a reporter to scream over the cellular phone to try and save his broadcast before the executive producer cuts him off. Want to know what the... Okay. Yeah, so I think I'm just going to copy this in. And I'll put that into the character. And I'm just going to put this as a 2 just to... I don't think I'm going to have a detective, but... let's see. Okay. And then footage life cycle. Okay, so we've got that. Now we understand all the mechanics that go through. And see if we can use that. And one of the notes that I'm going to put here is, let's get rid of that smiley face. Notes. Use the weather. What if a hurricane hits? That'd be pretty cool. Okay. And going back to our research questions. Okay, so I think we've pretty much got the MO of the reporter. Yep. And I guess the question is, would there be any still images? Let me ask. So, let's see. Oh, let's see. Going to... Uh-oh. There we go. That's where I want it to be. And let's go to... Okay. So would there be any use of Polaroid cameras? I imagine that there were no digital cameras yet. Would there be any use of Polaroid cameras in order to get images or record things? I'm talking from the reporter's perspective or the crew's perspective. Let's see if Polaroid is going to make an appearance. Well, print journalists use traditional 35mm film cameras. Polaroid 600 or an image spectra system provided something print couldn't: instant physical evidence. A sleazy or aggressive television crew would use a Polaroid camera for very specific tactical reasons at a crime scene. Bribing and trading with witnesses. Tabloid reporters are famous for checkbook journalism, paying people for tips. A Polaroid camera was the ultimate bargaining chip. If a neighbor or security guard saw something juicy, your reporter could snap a quick Polaroid photo of a piece of evidence, a suspect being put in a squad car, or even a grisly detail before the cops covered it up. The leverage. You could wave that developed square photo in front of a witness's face and say, "I'll give you this exclusive photo to sell to the National Enquirer for $5,000 if you give me an on-camera interview right now." Oh, that's pretty good. Continuity, show and tell on TV. Since they are broadcasting via an analog microwave beam, a physical photo is actually an incredible visual aid for the television report. During its live broadcast, the reporter could hold a freshly developed Polaroid directly up to the lens. That's pretty funny. I'm going to use that, the vibe. Because the camera operator can zoom in right on the glossy Polaroid, the reporter can show the audience at home a snapshot of something the police are currently blocking the video camera from seeing, like inside a car window or behind a tarp. This screams authentic rogue tabloid journalism. Evading police confiscation. If the police caught a reporter shooting video of something highly sensitive inside the perimeter, they might seize the massive beta cam. Polaroids are small and easily pocketed. The reporter could snap a quick picture, pull the photo out as it splits from the camera, and immediately slide it into his inner jacket. Even if the cops tell him to turn off the video camera, the reporter walks away with the physical image hidden on his body. So I would imagine that his cameraman turns on the sun gun and then he snaps the Polaroids. Continuity. for the newsroom wall. Inside the news van, the crew would use a corkboard or the dashboard to pin up Polaroids of victim suspects and locations they are tracking. It was their version of a digital desktop, chaotic physical murder board covered in square whiteboards. Okay, I'm going to copy this. This is great. And I'll just throw this into my writing deck here. And this is going to Roger. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go down here. Method of operation. I don't like all the titles, but I'll organize it later at some point. Okay. Just throw it down here. Okay. So that's a Polaroid. So we got that. And let's talk about Whitey Jackson, our other bad guy next to Joel. Okay. Okay, let's do a new chat because I want to make this relatively clean for the AI's context. Okay. So I have a guy, he's one of the hitmen for the gang. He grew up in Overtown, Liberty City area. His name is Whitey Jackson. And Whitey, what was I going to say? Damn. Let's see. Yes. So I have a character who's the hitman, and he has a car, and it might be stolen. It might not be. It probably actually is his, because he's sloppy. And he kills somebody, and then later he gets pulled over, and the police get him for an open container and a bag of weed. And the question is, so he goes to jail. He's probably got an outstanding warrant, so he's out, goes to jail for a while. The question is, what happens to his car? It's 1994 in South Florida. How long would they hold his car for? And where would they hold it? So would his gang like pick up his car somewhere at the impound? Obviously they want the car because it might have evidence in it and they want to destroy it, or they might hold it for him. So I'm trying to understand, because in the story right now that I'm writing, the main character discovers evidence in the trunk when he goes to pick up the car, but this is several years after the guy got arrested, right? So he goes to pick up the car and he opens the trunk and he sees evidence that the gang he's been working for is actually the gang that killed his father. So that's the twist. And right now the mechanism I'm using is the car. So I need to make a plausible story of why he would go pick up this guy's car several years later. Or maybe I can use another way for him to discover the evidence. But this is the car that was used when the guy who ended up in jail blew up his dad. So he would find the evidence of the bomb and everything. Let's see. Okay. Let's see what my... So this is a great plot setup, but you have a slight legal and logistical hurdle with the timeline. In 1994, South Florida, a standard procedure for a routine arrest like an open container and a bag of weed would not result in the police holding a car for several years. If a car is towed to a private yard or city impound lot and left unclaimed, the tow company or municipality will declare it abandoned and sell it at public auction after 35 to 50 days to recoup storage fees. The police won't pay to store a sloppy hitman's car indefinitely for a minor misdemeanor. However, you can absolutely keep this car as your discovery mechanism. You just need to tweak who had the car and where it was sitting for those years. Here are 3 highly plausible ways to make your timeline work perfectly for a 1990s Florida crime story. Let's see what it comes up with. The junked getaway car. When the hitman gets arrested, his gang learns about it immediately. They don't know exactly what's in the car, but they know it was used in the bombing, so they want it gone. Instead of leaving it with the police, the gang pays a crooked tow truck driver to uses a fake ID to pull the car out of the impound lot within 48 hours. They drive it straight to a private gang-owned property like an old warehouse in the Everglades, a scrap yard they use for laundering money, or shipping container yard near the port of Miami. The logic: they intend to crush or burn it, but because the hitman was sloppy and the gang is disorganized, the car just sat under a tarp in the back of the warehouse for years. That's great. The discovery. Years later, your main character is tasked with cleaning out the old property or inherits the gang's old assets, finds the car, opens the trunk, and finds the blast residue evidence. That's pretty good. The police evidence locker twist. If you want the car to literally sit in police custody for years, the police need a reason to hold it. An open container won't do it, but the bombing will. Imagine the police did collect the car to the bombing of the protagonist's father, or at least expected it. They seized the vehicle as evidence. In an unsolved murder can be held in police compound indefinitely. The logic. Cut to several years later, the case has gone cold. The police department is clearing out their long-term evidence, often a dusty fenced yard by Tamiami or the county to make room. They put old unclaimed vehicles up for police auction. Your main character buys that car at the auction specifically because he recognizes it as the hitman's old ride, or uncovers it in a police salvage lot while working the lead. He digs into the trunk and finds a niche piece of evidence. I like that they can hold it. Option 3, the stolen vehicle, elderly relative. If the car was registered to someone else, that's funny. The logic. The hitman puts the car's title in the name of a straw owner, like a girlfriend or an elderly relative who had no idea what he did. When he goes to jail, the car sits in an impound lot until the storage fees skyrocket. To avoid the car being auctioned, the girlfriend pays the fees but leaves it parked in a remote self-storage unit at a rural property in Homestead. She passes away or moves, and the storage unit goes into default. The main character buys the contents. Okay. Verisimilitude. The vibe. If it's a private tow yard, it's hot, dusty, surrounded. Okay. Okay, yeah. That's plausible. Well, I imagine that they pull him over for weed, or they pull him over, they find the weed, and then he gets tased, and then they discover that he has a warrant and all this other stuff. And so he goes to prison for like existing things he's wanted for. So that might get him in for serious enough crimes. But the question I have is, why would they, originally in my original story when I conceived of it, the gang leader, there's the gang leader, and then there's this guy Whitey, and then there's his mentee Garvin, who's our main character. And Garvin is tasked with picking Whitey up from prison, and they have the idea that they're gonna give him his car back, right? Maybe Whitey was really angry that he lost his car, right? And so they're gonna get him his car back, and they send Garvin to get the car, and when he goes to get the car, he discovers the stuff. So maybe that's another way to do it. What do you think? Let's see what Gemini tells me. That twist makes total sense character-wise. If Whitey is a sloppy, old-school criminal, he's exactly the type of guy to be stubborn, obsessed with getting his specific car back the second he gets out of prison. So go pick up Whitey's car so we can surprise him when he gets out. There are two best ways to execute that depending on how you want to see the feel. Okay, they bail him out. Yeah, they just parked it in a commercial unit. And then when Whitey's car got towed to his rest, he went yard. Yeah, that's perfect. The tire's flat. Okay. Using the car as a welcome home gift adds great dramatic irony. Yeah. Okay, that's a nice piece of logic, is the car's got a flat, so he's got to clean it up. So maybe the boss says, hey, Whitey's getting out of jail. Let's go get his car. And then he's at the junkyard and he's got a flat, and he goes to get the tire in the back, in the trunk, and that's how he discovers the stuff. That's perfect. And we don't have to show the gang doing everything. We just have to tell them, go get the car. That makes sense. That is absolutely perfect. It flows so naturally because it relies on a universal mundane frustration dealing with a flat tire to force your character into the one place he wasn't supposed to look. By having the boss casually drop the line about the car has been, you instantly explain the logic to the audience. The audience gets it immediately. The gang has connections. Whitey is stubborn. Here's how that scene plays out. Garvin arrives at the junkyard. He hooks up a new battery. The turn. Yeah, so there is a theme where Garvin is working at not a junkyard, but maybe a mechanic's shop. And he can go back there. So right after, in the halfway house, right? So I like that this location gets 2 scenes in it now. Okay. All right. Yeah, so just give me a summary. You don't have to write it for me. Just give me a summary of the bits. So the boss tells him to go get the car. He gets a flat. He goes to the trunk to get the spare and discovers the evidence. That's all I need for now. Even give me a nice summary. Okay. Good enough. So let's go to our writing. And let's see what we can do here. Because this is definitely the story for Garvin. This is Garvin's story. Okay, story A. And this is his twist. So I'm going to put this. I'm going to put this in the twist. And I'll just have that sort of written for me. But we will clean that up later. Now at least we have an idea. And I'll take a note on, see if I have a note. Yep. When Garvin goes to pick up the car, he can pick it up at the mechanics where he was working from the halfway house. So you get that this mechanic is affiliated with organized crime, owned by the Vanta gang. So, okay, cool. Then the junkyard can be reused later for Garvin to get the car, to get Whitey's car. All right, cool. That's great. Let's see what we got in our research question. Okay, we got the impound. We got the storage, so that we don't have to go to the deals of it. We just know they got it. How thorough are the police in search of the imported? Yeah, that's a good question I have to ask. Okay, let me ask that question. Okay, so depending on what the guy, he had warrants and stuff. Would the police search his car, or would they just impound it? So he got caught for like weed, right? And the police probably never make the connection between him and the bombing. So would they look through it for evidence of other stuff? Or let's say that he has like a gun charge or he's wanted for armed robbery and they get him for weed. Would they investigate his car, or would that be not a thing that happens? Let's see. Oh. All right, guys. I'm going to have to call this quits because we've been at it for an hour and we're going to have to leave this for next time. For those of you who stuck with me so far at this very chaotic episode, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you on the next stream. Thank you for everything. Let's make it happy. Boom.